Okay, we're graphing quadratic equations. Okay, so now let's use the example. Let's do the example x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Okay, so we have that. First thing we need to know is if our A, right here, if the A is positive, greater than 0, you're going to have a graph that opens up and it will have a minimum value. This would be a minimum. The vertex, the tip of it down here, will have a minimum value. That's called the vertex. Okay? And if A is less than 0, it's going to open down and it will have a maximum value at the vertex. Okay? Now to determine the vertex, you gonna leave?
Yeah.
Okay. To determine the minimum or maximum value, let's just do, is everybody good with that? To determine the vertex, which is your min or your max, you're going to use this formula. The x will be negative b over 2a. So it's like the rest of the quadratic equation that we didn't use for the discriminant. Remember when we had the discriminant, we used this part? That told us what kind of solutions we would have. This part of it gives us our minimum or maximum. See? That's the rest of it, negative b over 2a. Okay, that's the x. The y will be if you solve it with that. So it will be the function at that point. So if you find out that the x is like 2, then you're going to put 2 for all the x's and solve for y. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay? So, let's do our ABC. There's our example. X squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So what is A? 1. B? Negative 4. C? Negative 12. Okay. So, first let's find out. Okay, so let me do a different color. Negative, what is B? Negative 4. 2 times 1. So still figuring this out. We can do the two negatives together and make them a positive. So actually that one is 2. Accidentally, I just said 2 a while ago, but this one actually is 2. So the x-coordinate of, this one's a positive, so it's going to be greater than 0, it's going to go up like this. The x-coordinate of that point will be 2. Now let's find out what the y-coordinate will be. you're gonna do the function at 2. So you're gonna replace x with 2 in this. Okay, so we're gonna have x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So we rewrite this with parentheses where the x's are and put a 2 in there. That's our function at 2, by putting 2's where the x's are. 2 squared is 4.
Minus 18.
Minus 8 minus
Okay.
12.
Negative 16.
Negative 16?
Yes.
Okay. So that's our y coordinate of our vertex. So you know that it opens up because it's got a positive. And so whatever 2, negative 16 would be, somewhere down here or something, that would be our vertex. So we know it's going to open up. We don't know where it's going to cross the x-intercept, our x. What is y when it crosses the x-intercept? When it crosses the y-axis, that's when y is 0, right? Y is 0 and x is that number, right? So the x-intercepts will be something 0 and something 0. So what we want is y to be 0, right? So we could write that right there and just solve for the 2 x's. Here's our function, and you put it equal to 0 and try to factor it if you can. Factoring it will give you whole numbers, so let's factor it if we can. X squared, hopefully we don't have to use the quadratic formula, right? Because that would give us square root things, that would be pretty. Okay, let's factor it. X and x, the ones that subtract to give you 4. We have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, okay, 2 and 6. We need a negative 4.
Plus 2.
Plus and minus.
Right. So this one will give us an x of negative 2,
Positive 6.
positive 6. This will be negative 2. This will be positive 6. Actually, yeah, it's probably far over here. Okay? So negative 2 is where it will cross here. 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll go something like that. So if you have your graphing calculator and you put this in here, in there, the f of x, put that in there and see if it looks like that.
Just do that from the get-go.
Huh?
Can we just do that from the beginning?
Do you have your graphing calculator with you?
No, I meant like, can we just do that like when we're doing the work and just decide whether or not it's the...
And then you can find the minimum and all that? You could, yeah, you could do that. If runs out of batteries and you're in the middle of a test, you still gotta know how to do this stuff.
Oh, I was just asking.
Yeah, you can. Okay, what about the y-intercept? I wonder where it crossed right here. You have it graphed already? Anybody have it graphed on the graphing calculator? Okay, it should cross somewhere here on the y also, right? Obviously, by the picture, you can tell it has a y-intercept. So, what are we going to do to find a y-intercept? This is the x-intercepts. What does a y-intercept look like? It looks like 0 something, right? So that means you're going to put 0 for x. So go to this and put 0 for x. 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 12 equals 0. 0 minus 0 minus 12. That's actually equal to y, sorry. Because we're looking for our y.
-12.
Negative 12. So this should have crossed here, that negative 12, this was
16?
2, negative 16, right. So if you have all those points on there, you just kind of draw if you're doing it on paper. Okay, so we have our vertex, we have our x-intercepts, we have our y-intercept. There's one more thing, well, two more. This is our minimum value. Negative 16 is our minimum value. It would be where the y is the minimum or where the y is the maximum. So this is the minimum value right there. One more thing is the line of symmetry. If you were going to fold this, and it would be symmetrical on both sides like a butterfly or a heart, you actually would fold it on the 2 for the line of symmetry. Okay? That would be, the x part would be where you'd be folding it, of the vertex. And the y part would be your maximum or minimum. Okay, do you remember the words domain and range? Yeah? Okay. What's our domain?
X's.
The x's, right. The domain, the x's actually can go as far negative and as far positive as you want to go. So the domain of this is all the way from
Negative infinity, positive infinity.
negative infinity to positive infinity. The range will be our y's, and you're going to go from the negative up. So what's the least?
Negative 16.
Negative 16, but it can be negative 16, right? So we're not going to put a parenthesis, because it can never be that. We put a bracket. Negative 16, all the way to
Infinity.
infinity. Oops, that was not a bracket, that's a parenthesis. So there's our domain, and there's our range.
Is it gonna ask for that?
Yes. You may have one with domain and range. If it was on her notes, I'm assuming. I don't see it on these homeworks, but it doesn't hurt to know it. Okay, now let's do one that opens down. If you're gonna fall asleep, stand up and just watch. Standing there listening, you're learning more than sitting there sleeping, right? Okay, what is our A, B, and C? Okay, the vertex. Remember that was the rest of it except for under the square root. The vertex was negative B over 2A. So negative B over 2 times A. Negative 2. So positive, it'll be a 2 again, right? So what is the function at 2, at this number? So we're going to put 2's where the x's are. Two squared, negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 plus 1. So we got negative 4 plus 8 plus 1. 5. Is this a maximum or a minimum? Because this is negative, we know it's going to go like this. So it's a maximum. That's gonna be our vertex. It'll be a max because it'll be at the tip of the top up here somewhere. So 2.5. It's actually gonna be higher up here. Okay, so it's gonna go down. Okay, what was the next thing we did on it? After the vertex, we found the x-intercepts.
Plug in your f of x.
Plug in our, and what's going to be our line of symmetry since we have this here now? 2. Line of symmetry is x equals 2. Because if you draw the line, that's x equals 2. So the line of symmetry is x equals 2. You could fold it right there. Be symmetrical, and our maximum value is 5, right? The y is 5, so it's 5. Okay, now let's do, we can do x-intercepts or y-intercept, either one.
This is y.
You want to do the y? Y-intercept is where, which part's 0?
X.
The x is 0, okay? So, that's pretty easy to plug in, right? Negative 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 1.
Be 1.
1. So our y-intercept will be 1. So at 1 is where it's going to cross, right there. And now we have the top, and we need to see where it touches our x, right? The x-intercepts. Okay, so x-intercepts look like what?
2, 0. 0.
Like this. But we don't know what the numbers are, right? We need to set this equal to 0 and then factor it. So let's see if we have room here to do it. Negative x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Is that going to factor probably? No, it's not going to be a whole number though. It's going to be weird. Okay, let's do the ABC. Let's get the two numbers. A is negative 1, B is 4, because I know when you do 1 times 1, it's not going to add up to 4. So I know we can't just factor it. Okay, C is 1. Negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4 AC over 2 times A. Okay, so we have negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 4 over negative 2. This is square root of 20. 4 times 5. So we have negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 5 over 2.
Well, up to negative 2.
Do what?
Well, up to
Oh,
negative.
sorry. Sorry, it's there. I messed up. Okay, so divide by 2. And I ran out of room. Can't squeeze any more on there. Sorry. Okay, so we have negative 2 plus or minus square root of 5 over negative 1. So negative 2 plus square root of 5, change the sign, and negative 2 minus square root of 5 over negative 1. So what does that come out to? Somebody? -2 plus square root 5.
Negative 4.23.
Is that what you added?
If you round it.
I have negative 0.236, is that what you got?
That's what I got.
Okay, that's that way. Now do that way. -2 minus square root 5. 4.236.
Yep.
Right after the one that you circled. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. If we want to round them, we could round this to negative 0.24 and round that to 4. If you're going to just figure out, I mean, this is like almost 0, just barely. Stand up if you're falling asleep. Okay, so this is what we put in front of the zeros. 4 and then negative 0.24. That's where you would cross. So barely behind the 0, which makes sense, it's coming down. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. So it's going to come like that. It's going to go up, that's the tip, and it's going to come back down. So something like that. If you put that on the graphing calculator, it should max out at, what was the max? 2.5. Go through the Y at 1, and should cross these points at almost about 4, barely past, and barely to the right side of 0. This is not exact. This is a scratch paper. Definitely not an exact science on doing that. And what was the domain and the range here? Domain of the x's. Of course, the x's because it's a domain. X's can go forever, right? You go forever this way. So the domain of this,
Negative infinity.
negative infinity to positive infinity, and the range
Negative infinity, 5.
up to 5, right? And what do we put?
Bracket.
Brackets, right? And that was the only notes. So you want to do some more of those? Or is that good? I don't mind doing some more.
That's good.
Do one more.
One more? Okay. He's like, shoot. That's okay, you slept through last week, you slept through this week.
You don't have to wait.
Okay, this, I'm looking at 7.5, like, those don't look anything like what we were doing. Okay, 7.6. Yes, okay. You want to do negative or positive? Open up or open down? Negative? Okay. This way. Here we have f of x equals negative 2x squared minus 2x plus 3. So it has a negative here, we know it's going to open down. Okay. So we know it's going to be one of these. What's our A?
Negative 2.
What's our B? And our C? 3. Okay, so our x coordinate of our max will be negative b over 2a, right? So negative b over 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, right? So it's positive 2 over negative 4 is negative 1/2, right? To get the y coordinate, we plug this into the x's. So we have negative 2 with 1/2 squared minus 2 times 1/2 plus 3. Two times 1/2 is just 1, right? That one was easier. This is negative 2 times 1/4, really. 2 times 1/2, that much of it is 1, so it's negative 1/2. Negative 1.5 plus 3, is that 1.5? Positive 1.5? Positive 3/2?
3/2.
Positive 3/2, right? And is this a max or a min? Max. And our max value is
3/2.
3/2. Our line of symmetry,
Negative 1/2.
right? X equals negative 1/2. And we need our x-intercepts and y-intercepts. The y-intercept is where you make what equal to 0? Not the y, the x, right? So we put this whole thing equal to 0. No, we put zeros in here, sorry. Put zeros in there.
Would be 3.
So negative 2 times 0 squared minus 2 times 0 plus 3, right? Pretty easy because that usually all goes away and you just have that, right? So there's our y-intercept. We need our x-intercepts. And that was where y is 0, right? So we're going to solve it. If it won't factor, which doesn't look like it's going to factor again, looks like we're going to use a quadratic equation again. Okay, so I'm going to use another page. Quadratic equation, we're ready to do it because we got a, b, and c. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4a c all over 2a. Okay, so that part's 2 plus or minus positive 4
Minus 8.
plus 8 times 3, right? Negative 4. So we have 2 plus or minus square root of 28 over negative 4. This is 4 times 7, right? So we have 2 plus or minus 2, the square root of 4 is 2, square root of 7 over negative 4. 2 divided by 2. So you have 1 plus or minus 1 square root of 7 over negative 2. So you have 1 plus square root of 7 over negative 2 and 1 minus square root of 7 over negative 2.
Oh, it's your 7.
Yes.
7. That was a 7. I just wrote it like a 2. Right. Okay. 1 plus square root of 7 divided by negative 2. And what'd you get?
Negative 1.822.
Right, okay. This one, 1 minus square root of 7 divided by -2.
Is 0.822.
Okay. I don't know how much it wants us to round it to. X-intercepts. Oh, it didn't even put a, shoot, oh well. Okay, so we know our x-intercepts are, we'll just do 1.8, do it to the 10th, and that one to the 10th. Okay, so, let's see what it looks like in the book and see if we did it right. Our maximum, we had 3 halves, how come they have 7 halves? So is this 7 halves instead of 3 halves? This. Yeah, it's 2.5, that's not 1, that's not 3 halves, it's 7 halves. You guys just let me say 3 halves and you say, yeah, it is. So it's 2.5, because you got, this is -1.5 plus 3. Anyway, it should be 2.5, which is 7 halves. So 7 halves is your max. Change that to 7. We just wrote it like a 3 earlier. Should have been a 7. We just keep writing our 7s wrong today. Okay, so our max is 7 halves. Our line of symmetry is -1/2, which across the y at 3. Okay, so let's see if we can blow this up and see if we got it right. You got your stuff in front of you. Our max is at 7 halves, and the y, the line of symmetry, is at x equals -1/2. Do we have negative on our 1/2? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And then this is our vertex point. But it didn't ask for these, but we can see if it looks right. What was our, a -1.8? That's almost to the -2, right?
Yeah.
And the other one was 0.8, which is almost to the 1. So you can tell that's right. Where did we say it crosses the y? 0, 3. Does that cross the y at 3? Yes. We did so good. We can do it. And there's some problems at the end here that only want the x and y intercept. It doesn't want the line of symmetry or the max, so you may just be asked for the x and y intercepts also. Okay, is that good? Or somebody want to do another one? Remember, you might get beat up when you leave the room though. If you ask for another one. So we're done? That's our last lecture other than the review for the test, right?